To get ready to join your chat channel. Meanwhile, why don't you invite your friends, relatives and families? Don't hesitate to share the information at your social media channels and also send SMS message via WhatsApp Telegram signal. See you soon. Hello everybody, Dr. Zero Show now connects to USA. Professor Anjala, Krishen, welcome.
Welcome. Good morning.
Good morning. It is morning there, but here it is almost evening. So you are professor of marketing and then you are responsible MBA programs at the University of Nevada, isn't it, in Las Vegas?
Yes, yes.
So my question
is, I'm a professor of marketing, yes.
So why should anybody get MBA?
Well, having gotten an MBA myself, I think it's a great degree. I had really good experience with it. So I think what it does, it is unique in the sense that it is, to my knowledge, the only master's degree that involves 5 different fields. So you get an overview of management, marketing, economics, finance, and accounting. And most master's and PhD degrees are much more specialized. So the benefit of an MBA is that it sort of opens your mind. It allows you to see things from a bigger perspective because you're no longer sort of myopic about one specific discipline. You get to be broader and see a problem, a business problem, from all of these different perspectives. And that is the point of it.
But is it mainly for engineers? Because usually I had engineering degree, but later on I did master in entrepreneurship. But usually we were recommended to take MBA because we have engineering degree. So is your programs are for engineering degree or for different programs also?
Well, to be honest, I have an engineering undergraduate as well, but I can tell you that no, it's not at all for just engineers. In fact, we have dual programs at the moment with the nursing school, the dental school, the hospitality school, the MIS program. So we have, and the law program, the JD. So it is absolutely not just for engineers. I'm currently working on 3 additional dual programs. Hopefully we'll go through, and 2 are with engineering and 1 is with the MD program that we just developed at UNLV. So it's a great program for pretty much any undergraduate. I think, to be honest with you, the teaching is in that sense more difficult because what happens is your students come in from all different backgrounds. Yes. So you have to be able to teach your field without being specific to, you have to assume that people in your classroom don't know. That's right. So that is the challenge. But no, it's definitely not just for engineers. Absolutely not. I would say we have less than 50% of our students are engineers. We have a pretty good mix of all different backgrounds. So,
but from student perspective, do you think there is a benefit to be in this type of classroom? And what type of benefits are there?
Oh, so, well, I can't help but mention COVID. Since COVID happened and the pandemic happened, we obviously could not conduct our classes in the way that we had originally planned. But I've had this job for a little over a year. And when I started before COVID, I decided to work on sort of looking at how is education working today. So at the beginning of January 2020, I started looking and I came to realize that hybrid, at the moment, the hybrid format, there's quite a bit of research on it. And pedagogically, it's proven to be quite successful. So before COVID hit, I worked on converting our program to a hybrid format. We're currently a part-time evening MBA program. So it got approved all the way up the chain and we became a hybrid format part-time MBA program, actually the first in the state. So then COVID hit And so most of spring and fall last year, and even now, spring of 2021, we're having to do mostly online classes. So in that sense, we've had, it's been quite difficult. But to answer your question, you said, what are the benefits of an MBA, even having all these people with the different backgrounds? It is the networking that is a big part of it. Again, because of going fully online, that's been a big, huge challenge. We're still having online speakers. We're having virtual speakers every semester. We're still having our orientation, and we're using online tools. But when things get better, the hybrid program is, we think, the best, because it allows you to have the online interaction, which gives you more freedom, right, about location, and is more inclusive, because it can bring in people from all different backgrounds who maybe don't have access to transportation, or maybe have children or other things that gives them more flexibility. And then it also has the face-to-face, and that way you can still do the networking, you can still make friends, meet people, work together. Regardless of what format we're in, even with the pandemic, we still are doing group projects in virtually every class. Virtually almost every class in our program involves some sort of group project effort. And what this does is it gets you to meet people, you work in a cohort, you solve problems like you would in the real world. Nobody ever solves a problem by themselves. That's not very common.
Nobody.
You have to work in teams. So that team work is very unique to MBA programs. And I think we do a really good job of it at UNLV. But it is something that is, again, unique to MBAs, because working with people, there's no prescription. It's not, oh, okay, this person's going to have the exact same background as me, or this. No, you could end up with a team that has people from all different countries, all different degrees, all different walks of life with different levels of experience, and they need to work with you. We have people in the classroom that have worked for 15, 20 years and are pretty high up in their corporation and are now getting an MBA. And then we have other people who just started, an MBA program almost straight out of school. So we've got these different levels, and what happens is you have this kind of cross-pollination, because you work with people at these different levels and with these different backgrounds, and it really gives you a big benefit. So I think the biggest benefit is that networking piece, that working in teams. That is, to me, the biggest benefit.
Yes,
but I'm very passionate about it, as you can see.
Yes, definitely. I see the energy. I can feel the energy. So it says that, because usually we talk about like heroes, like a hero leader. In reality, there is no heroes in corporations. It is a group work. So it is not a single man or woman that does everything. You need to be able to manage the team. So what you say is, when you do MBA with people from different backgrounds, you are actually getting this type of management skills in very limited time.
Yes.
But regarding the overview, or if you look at digital education, so all of a sudden it broke the negative perception about online MBA. For example, if before somebody said, oh, I am having my MBA online or master education online, people would less value that. But now I think nobody talks about it, because everything became digital. So
that's right.
Is it the same thing with your experience? Did it help you at the university when you have mixed education?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a difficult one, because, first of all, I'm at an age where when I was finishing my MBA, it was 1996. So I don't have that, there were no options at the time. I went to Virginia Tech. It was a part-time MBA program. I was working full-time. So there were no options to have a fully online MBA. We did have remote locations. I vividly remember sitting in class and having people looking at us from a different screen that were sitting in a different sort of satellite office of Virginia Tech. So even back then, there were students who were watching the video while we were sitting in the classroom at the headquarters of Virginia Tech. So I don't think it's super new. It's been going on for as long as people could actually physically do it. We've had, as long as the technology has allowed people to learn online, they've been doing it. So it's not very new. I don't think it's fair to have a bias against a program because of the formats. I personally think that's not fair. I think we need to judge programs by the content, by the quality of the faculty, by the quality of the students, by the kind of offerings they have. But I think saying, oh, every online MBA program is not good, or every full-time, the format itself should not dictate the quality of the program at all. And I think if we learned anything from this pandemic, that is what we learned. We learned that, a a top quality faculty member, some of our own faculty members, that I can do shout outs to, Richard Gardner. These people are talented. They know how to get into the classroom. They know how to teach the subject, but they also know how to convert and pivot to an online format and still give that benefit of pedagogy. So I think that in a way, you're right. I think that in a way, because we had to go fully online, people became more accepting of it as a format. And certainly there's probably going to be less bias about it. And I think there's space for everything. That is kind of the way I see it. There is space for fully online programs and there's space for fully face-to-face programs. And I think there's benefits from both. I would say that the benefits are different. Absolutely. Like a fully online program for certain people is going to be the best option. They're going to be able to get that degree, learn what they need to learn, and excel in their job. And for other people, and I can tell you with our format, I love the hybrid because it does kind of give people, the students, the ability to do a little bit of both. And so it really broadens. Our goal at UNLV is maybe not the same as a lot of other institutions. We're known for diversity. We are actually one of the most diverse and inclusive universities in the world, certainly in the country, in the US. And so with that diversity, you kind of have to really allow for all of these different voices and these different backgrounds. And what the hybrid gives us is that ability to kind of mix in the diversity and we're already seeing it. We're already seeing it in our enrollment right now. We have a very diverse and inclusive body of students, and you can sort of feel it. I mean, I've taught in our program for basically since 2007. I've been teaching in the MBA programs, and I teach fall, spring, and summer. And I teach 3 different courses. So I kind of have a really broad view of the students, and I kind of see this happening in real time, that we're getting a lot of diversity. We're getting a really good representation of genders and backgrounds, and international versus domestic students. And like you said, engineers versus hospitality, dental,
Nurses,
JD, you name it. Nurses as well, yeah. So
yes, I have a final question. Like, just to clarify,
sure.
when you mean the hybrid, so do you mean that some part of course are online, some part are digital, and some are physical, or do you mean that you have option? You can either take full online or full in class, or mix it. I just want to clarify.
I love that question. So we just did this, and then pandemic hit. So the way I instituted it, the way I'm putting it together is flexible. We want to be hybrid flex, but at the moment, the way it's being done is every class, every required course, and as many electives as we can are alternating weeks. So we have a schedule. I produce the schedule for the faculty. I then send it to them. They all approve this program. So every other week is online. And then the weeks that are not online are face-to-face. So you actually, every single course should be alternating weeks on campus. The benefit of that is if you're taking 3 classes, you don't have to be online on campus certain weeks. You don't have to, excuse me, change your organization for every single class. It's not, I have a 5:30 to 6:45 on campus, and then I have a 7 to 9:45 online, which would be very inconvenient. So what we've done is we've made it organized in blocks. So you have online weeks, offline weeks. And the offline weeks at the moment are supposed to be face-to-face. But because of, like, for example, my class is synchronous. On the face-to-face weeks, I'm doing synchronous, which means I'm doing something like this, where I'm face-to-face, but I'm virtual with the students, but still live.
Thank you very much for connecting from USA, and I appreciate your time. I wish you a great education year and then research also.
Oh, thank you. Same to you. So nice to meet you, and I appreciate everything you did, and I look forward to getting to know more about your background, and these videos are great. So thank you so much.
Hello everybody, welcome to Dr. Zero Show. Today I have 2 guests, Steffi Siegert from Södertörn University and Anton Hasselgren from Josefin University. Welcome Steffi, welcome Anton.
Thank you.
Thanks for having
us. I would like to discuss about academia, of course, because of your line of work and what you do. Steph, I would like to start with you. What do you think the way that academics or some type of academics are using the language at academia?
So I think language is, and I assume not only in academia, but this is the context we know, right?
Yes.
Language is used as a way to express status, but also to exclude and indicate who is part of the in-group. And I think it's used in different ways and on different almost levels. One of it is, of course, I am a foreigner in this country. And in the beginning, when I didn't speak the language, the native language was definitely used to exclude the immigrants from decision-making, from understanding processes. So there's always this aspect, like how is consciously or subconsciously a certain group excluded from important decisions. But then language is also used as a signifier of status. And that I have met multiple times when people comment on how I express myself. Not so much.
Can you give some example? Like,
yeah, absolutely. I was told at a conference, for example, by a more senior academic that the way I speak is not very academic.
Yes. Like, do you have different, is it the some phrases that you're supposed to use, or the way that you stand, or hand gestures? What does he mean?
And this is, I think it's a very good question. That academic in particular was very offended by my use of coarse language. Mm-hmm. And mind you, I generally don't use coarse language in presentations at conferences. But when I hang out with other academics, then yes, because I am not only an academic, I come from a social class that speaks differently. And I don't want to hide that. But I think in academia, there's this assumption to a certain extent, and that probably is also historical, because the members of academia they came from the middle class, the upper class, the upper middle class. Is this the pet text?
Oh, hi. You are not supposed to show a cat during an academic discussion. You don't act like an academician.
Absolutely not. It helps with the attention of the students, though. So, and I think there is a certain way of speaking when you are growing up in the middle class or the upper class. You don't use coarse language. Coarse language is often associated with the working class. And someone that uses coarse language in an academic context is breaking social expectations.
I also noticed that, like, during some meetings or some interviews, when academicians speak, they use a jargon. There are simpler words if the main idea is to convey the message, to communicate with the society, or to talk about your research. Why do you use so long sentences with different jargons that makes it difficult people to understand? Like, as you said, maybe like to show the status.
And this is definitely, I would say, the third layer of exclusion. Academics have a tendency to make academic knowledge almost inaccessible to the, I'm using this phrase loosely, but the outside world.
To aliens or?
Even though we are fundamentally working toward the betterment of society. I mean, this is part of our job description. We're so enamored with our jargon and showing that we are so incredibly smart, so we have to use long and complicated words that no one else will understand. So I think the use of language as a way to exclude works on different levels or in different ways.
Yeah. Anton, do you have any comment about this?
I think it's very interesting what you're saying, Steffi, and it reminded me of research papers that I think are really, really good, and they all have in common that they are very clear in their language, not using this overly complicated language. So that's interesting. I think that tends to be just one group of academics, and I'm sure a majority, but one group of academics that feel the need maybe to, what's the word, to kind of assert their status in the academic world, using these very complicated words to show how intelligent and cool they are, and it is very exclusionary, I think, and that's a problem also for new people coming into academia, seeing this, feeling threatened by this, but also thinking that this is the way it's supposed to be. You have to express yourself in this way in order to be part of the in-group or fitting in the academic environment. So I think that's very interesting.
Also, I relate to what Steffi said. For example, in a couple of occasions, let's say there is a conference and there is a technical glitch, and then I help to solve it. So instead of people saying, "Oh, good that you have technical knowledge in addition to your presentation, your academic status," they say, "Oh, you look like practitioner." What do you mean practitioner? Because I know something more than that, and I am at the same conference as you are. I mean, why do you think it is something lower when I do something more additional? So it is interesting way of to decide the border, to present the border, but to find a way to exclude you. Is it true, Steffi? Like you use language in a way to exclude?
I would definitely say so. And it depends on the context, which group academics, I should probably say we, are trying to exclude. In the example that Anton mentioned, we're trying to make it really hard to newcomers to feel like they belong, to feel like they are comfortable in the environment we are creating, because this is not some magic that happens, right? We're part of this.
Of course.
And it is our responsibility to change that also. So I can definitely relate to what Anton said. I remember, like, not just my first seminar at university, I sat there and I realized that I did not understand about half of the words used. And that was my native language. It was disheartening. Yes, it was disheartening. And I looked around, I was like, okay, I hope someone else feels similarly.
But is it because you didn't know terminology? Or is it because the way the language used? I just want to clarify it. Maybe it is new domain, you don't know the terminology, you need to educate yourself. Or
I definitely think part of it was what we've talked about before, the jargon. It was very important for that particular lecturer to use the most difficult words he could find. Because in the first seminar, and I mean, it was clear that it was the first seminar for all of us.
Okay.
Yes, I mean, you could have made it more inclusive, right? You could have eased people into the jargon.
Yeah,
but
it is not. Okay.
And I think that also that's probably a good strategy, right? I mean, the terminology in itself can be kind of intimidating, and there is a lot to learn to kind of get into a subject and understand what's going on, even if the language is clear. So this just adds another layer of complexity to it, which is completely unnecessary, and I guess it's just a status thing, right?
Yeah,
and I think it's not.
Please continue, Steffi.
I'm sorry. I definitely think it is part of it is jargon, but in this particular context, it was an indicator of social class. I didn't have some of the vocabulary that he used. And I met that even in my PhD, when there it was a lot more jargon, because I had 5 years to pick up on all the words I didn't know before. But there's still this, I don't know, there's also the way of how people express themselves. And yeah.
Anton, related to what Steffi said, like there are expectations from researchers, especially new PhD candidates. Can we talk about these expectations based on your experience, or not your experience, but your observations?
Yeah, of course. And I think this, what Steffi and what we have been discussing here just now, ties into this next topic very nicely, I think, because it's all about expectations. What we discussed now with the language is also about expectations. And I mean, it's about you being expected as a PhD student or coming into academia to kind of join this academic club, and it has its own sort of rules of conduct that you need to kind of subscribe to. Those include language that we discussed earlier, and I think for me, what I've realized more, or what I've experienced more personally, it's also about, I don't know what name to put on it, but maybe expectations of overworking. So I've had several experiences during my PhD studies time where I've been basically shamed for not working weekends, shamed for taking vacation during summer. So there's these expectations on you, and I think especially as a PhD student, to work all the time and basically be overworked. That's the identity, and that's what you have to do to be a good PhD student.
I would like to add, this is what you have to do to be successful.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I don't think you need to do this to write a good dissertation. But the fact is that, I mean, senior faculty noticed me where I was talking about, oh, I'm actually going to go home and rest for this weekend. And that was picked up by senior faculty, and they shamed me for it. So, I mean, I don't think it had negative consequences for my career, but it could have.
But was it a joke, or was it like serious? Oh, how come you can have vacation?
It was serious, definitely.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I just want to add to this. It doesn't really matter to me if it was, if they pretended it was a joke.
Okay.
I mean, this is irrelevant. It shouldn't be commented on that an employee of the university is having a weekend.
And it's also, I think, related to this kind of in-group discussion that we have had recently. And I mean, there's a very clear hierarchy going from senior faculty on top and PhD students. So you have all of these running jokes, right? PhD students should make all the coffee for all the senior faculty, all that type of standard stuff going on. And what that means also in terms of expectations is that basically it's the senior faculty who is the in-group. And you as a PhD student, you're supposed to work your ass off just to get into this in-group. And you're supposed to do whatever it takes to be part of that in-group. And that in-group is defined by language, as we discussed, and other things as well. And then you're just expected to want to do anything to get to that point, basically.
Yeah, I want to also say that like the expectation that they want you to be available 24/7, not only for research but like for the lectures, for the comments, to communicate with students, and then apply for funding all the time, as if that there is no other life. But actually we should treat it as a regular job. If it is a regular job, of course it is different. There's an intellectual level, but I think maybe there is this level in every other jobs also. So it is not like something unique for us, like for doctors, for engineers, for even postmen, because you are if you look, you are letting people to access the knowledge. You send their important letters. If you are a postman, maybe you label it with something much more important or meaningful. But I see we are creating an unnecessary tension, especially for new PhDs, by demanding them to work 24/7, and it doesn't help, because If you look at, I had read a lot, like many people quit from PhD. If there are many people quitting from PhD, it is not good. Many people have some psychological problems. Even if this few, it is not good. So we need to discuss what are we doing to these young, ambitious, energetic PhD candidates that they think they quit or they quit. What are we doing that they start to have psychological problems? They need to take some help. So it shouldn't be only random that it is their mistake. What type of environment that we are creating? So it is interesting. Steffi, do you want to add anything about this?
Yes, the busy culture that you're kind of fostered into, it continues with senior academics, and it continues in some departments, definitely, that there are comments even among the more senior faculty where they're almost bragging about how much they're working. But you also see it at conferences, and you see it when you meet other academics that are they're so in love with their own busyness that they forget that there is actually a life outside of academia, and that it also has consequences. What kind of academics do we become if we work 24/7? If we lose touch with the society that we're supposed to help to become better, that we're supposed to improve?
I have a question to you, Steffi. Are these people because I start to notice with some people, I know they have been partying, but they were not informing anybody, but they pretend that they work a lot, or they have been reading all these articles, because when I ask details about articles, they cannot answer. So is it like, are they faking, or are there some people that are working 24/7?
This is a very good question. I think there are definitely some people that are faking. And it's very much about, how late can I send those emails so that everyone will believe I'm still working at 10 p.m.
Wow.
But
is it a strategy also?
Yeah, absolutely, it's a strategy. But some of it is also just that people forget that this isn't something we should praise. There are actually people that work nonstop. It's almost like they flee from the rest of their lives into work. And yes, I understand. I mean, sometimes, the rest of life sucks. I mean, we all survived 2020 in some way or another.
Yes.
But I don't know, maybe we shouldn't make that the kind of standard that we hold everyone accountable to.
Yes, there is, I can relate it to this entrepreneurship. We created a toxic environment that we expect startup founders and employees to work 24/7. And I remember there was one founder who visited Sweden, and then she just looked at people were living around 5, 6. She said, "Oh, my employees in US are working till 10, 12. So I just said, yes, but if they are working till 10, 12, then which means they have to pay the invoices at home. They have to call their wives, kids, partners, husbands at jobs, so they cannot have lives. So there is we create actually in a way that an environment that is not true, or maybe they shouldn't be the optimum, because you may have some period that you work too much. It is understandable. It is funding application or some couple of months, but you should have life outside of academia. This is the same for many other environments. Anton?
Yeah.
You were saying something?
Yeah, I think that's very broadly summarizing it. That is basically the expectation, is to give your entire life to academia already from the start, and just keep giving it. Working 24/7, being completely mobile in terms of changing your country from a year to another, working
Yes.
under very insecure conditions. You're basically supposed to give it your all, and there is no alternative really right now. That is the expectation, and I don't think it should be.
You
basically.
point point to something very interesting. They expect full devotion from academicians, but when it comes to academic positions, we have scarcity. All the time you are supposed to go for, after PhD, go to postdoc 1, postdoc 2, postdoc 3, work as a lecturer in country A, country B, country C, as if that you would never have a family life or a kid or a partner. Maybe forget about all these things. Let's say I want to go to a training to a regular gym club, fitness club, not during COVID-19 times. You cannot go because you are living in the middle, or you have to change. So, let's say you go to karate, there are different levels. You have to change country all the time. How can how can you handle these if you have to change every year? I know some people, they are doing their third postdoc, they are working as a lecturer, even though on paper they are supposed to work, I don't know, 60%, but they have too many things to do, 100%, and they don't have time for research. And when they apply for research, it happened in France in one university. When they employ you, they say, oh, how many publications do you have? If you have top ranking journal publication, then you are supposed to work less, so you have more time for research. But of course, if you are new PhD, just graduated, it is very rare that you have top ranking publications. Maybe there are some very people that are lucky in the nice research group and they could define very quickly, they had good data and they were able to publish. But majority of them are not. So I asked that person, if you have this type of hiring policy, how do you expect new researchers to be able to publish, because you don't give them time to do research? So she didn't have answer. What was funny, then I asked, when did you come up with this hiring process? She said, oh, just last year. So the seniors were not employed like this. So most probably, it shouldn't be like this. We have all this knowledge to create a nice environment for employees. But I think we are excluding academicians from the knowledge that we have. Steffi, do you have any comment about this expectation?
It's like the ones that are already sitting on the safe chairs. They're basically pushing up the ladder. It's so frustrating, and I completely agree with you. I have moved country more times than I think is reasonable. And obviously I have a pet. I have a cat. She hates it. So we're always thinking about, well, yeah, but if you have a family, even if you don't have a family, what does it matter? I have friends, I have a social life. I don't want to move country all the time. I don't want to feel rootless.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we should talk about these issues more. What type of challenges are there in the academia, especially for young academicians, and how can we create a better environment for academicians, because we are serving to society. I just want to highlight these problems are not exclusively in academia. It exists in other domains as well, other businesses. But since we know we have some level of knowledge in academia, we want to raise issues. We just don't want to hide it. I think it's good that we talk so that decision makers or people are aware. They can make some policy change, or they can introduce some measures that we can have a better environment. I would like to thank you, Steffi, for your time, and thank you, Anton. It was great to have you, and
you.
Bye.
Thank you for having us.
Right.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Dr. Zero Show right now connects to Lilo, north of Sweden, to talk to researcher Josefin Lassinantti. Welcome, Josefin. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Nice to have you here. I know you conduct research on open data, and you work in a public organization that works with open data. Why should we care about open data?
Yes, we should care. Just to say first, I work at the Agency for Digital Governance today. And I think one of the main reasons why we should work with open data is because it's really big part, an important part of the common infrastructure, the digital infrastructure. And when you work with open data, you don't only make it open, you can also work with structuring data. So the data becomes more interoperable. And when it becomes more interoperable, it has the potential to create lots of new benefits for society.
Can you give some examples? For example, what type of benefits? Is there any example, any application, any service based on open data?
I think that the one of the most prominent benefit that people usually talk about is new digital services. That when data is accessible, for example, through new APIs and in open formats and with the right licenses, it's much easier to create new services in various ways. But also that access to more data, it's good for research or other kinds of business analysis to create prognosis before the future. It's also when we reach more big data amounts, you can start. The open data is also a resource for AI, I would say.
So you mean this data can be used for AI?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, at the moment, AI is not a big thing in open data, but it's probably because the data is, we don't have that much data yet. But when you have, for example, larger data amounts, and also if you have the same kind of data, which is more structured from, for example, municipalities, then you can have 290 municipalities with the same data. And you would have a resource that might be suitable for AI.
Just a parenthesis for our audience. Sweden has 290 municipalities that they make decision on their data separately. And maybe this is one of the challenges because we don't have this unified platform for open data. No. So every municipality does little, but it has to be combined.
Yeah, so this is a great potential for the future. I wouldn't say that we are there right now. And like, for example, compared to Denmark has a more centralized governance than Sweden has historically. But through this new initiative at the Agency for Governance, Digital Governance, we just released a new Swedish data portal, for example, dataportal.se. So we have worked out, so we have created better support for public actors in Sweden to release their data. And we have also released a better support, like in guidelines and principles and support for them to actually get going with the work.
From 2012 to 2013, they were saying that open data is $1 billion industry. So these and that. So I'm just trying to see, where is this $1 billion industry? Are we slow to adapt or to do things? Or it is there but not visible to individuals like me?
I think personally I'm not that fond of making these economic claims because you tend to just focus on the money and not on other benefits. For example, the democratic perspectives, for example, that open data has also the potential to increase digital competence in society and user participation, and what is really relevant right now, for example, given what's happened in US, access to facts.
Yes, Freedom of Information Act, is it?
Yeah, so I mean, it's difficult to measure those benefits in money, I would say, and it doesn't really gives the credit to the data that it should. So I mean, economical aspects of data is just one part of the puzzle, I would say. So we talk a lot about the development of a common infrastructure, a data infrastructure. So that open data is just one part of a bigger set of changes. So when and it has to do with the structuring and the potential to connect data. So I think that is a huge potential in getting more structured and organized data.
So do you talk about linked data, like data sets that are related, or?
Yeah, I mean, not all data is going to be linked data, but you can do a lot to get closer to more structured data.
Yes.
For example, we have released now a function in the Swedish data portal about data specifications, so that people can join and use given specifications of a data and then come up with more structured data that increases the value of the data.
Of course. So do you mean that since it is not structured, since the data is not structured and they don't follow some standards, so it is very difficult to use.
So what I'm saying is not just about data being open, it's about data being open and structured.
Yes.
That's the big potential. And it's also going to be a huge benefit for public actors because they can increase their efficiency, they can increase their cooperation, innovate their cooperation with other public actors, both services, analysis, prognosis, exchange of information, making their processes more efficient. So I think there's a lot of benefits in that area as well. And also, I think it's important because it's more motivating for public actors to open up the data if they also can see that they get some benefits from it.
Can we say that our main problem is we want to quantify it, but when we quantify it, we usually use the monetary methods, and there is too many value that open data brings that you cannot measure with financials, and actually maybe you cannot directly measure. How can you measure help to democracy? Because like Freedom of Information Act, that you are able to, and Sweden is one of the oldest countries. I think it is the oldest one if you say with Finland, etc. Freedom of Information Act. How can you measure the value of that financially? It is almost impossible.
Yeah, and it's interesting to know that, but now I haven't done research in the last 2 years, but before that, you could see that EU, for example, they only made economical surveys or prospects about open. They didn't make a prospect about or report about what's the value for democracy, or how much is what's the benefits of transparency, or how can open data benefit research so that we get more knowledge. So there's a lot of, I think historically, we've been missing a couple of perspectives, and that the focus on money.
we see the way with COVID-19, for example, they released research data so early. It started from China, and then all researchers start to share the knowledge. So maybe because of that, we were able to get like faster vaccines because they were sharing knowledge.
I think it's important to see a more complex picture than many economical benefits from primarily digital services. I mean, digital services are really big and important thing, but open data can become so much more. I think one of what we are trying to do is that we are trying to broaden the perspective on what open data can be and what the potential are.
Yet to see that.
Yes. So that also includes like talking about what people should, open data is it's a democratic resource. So, but today everybody have the capability of actually using open data because it's quite difficult. I think that's something that everybody experiences in all the different countries, that to use open data is quite difficult. It requires quite a high technical knowledge.
Isn't it also there should be a dedication from the government? Because they release it, they need to release it in correct format, they need to motivate, provide incentive, because public authorities, they would never release if they don't see the value for themselves, but maybe there should be some push from the government also. Okay, you should do this and that, we provide you funding, resources, because public authorities, employees are already overwhelmed with so many work, and then you are telling them do this also, but they don't have time and resources, and then they need to gain some more skills.
I think we're working on a different several different paths. I mean, first, the Swedish government is releasing a new law about open data this summer. It's prognosed to the summer. So, I mean, that new law will probably have an impact on the motivation, because it's much clearer state actors that have data that is known as especially important data. They are obligated to release the data in machine readable formats and with an API. For the rest of the data in Sweden, there's a much stronger that they should on their own initiative release the data. And talking to lawyers, they say that. So the new Swedish law have a higher incentive for the public actors to release data. That is one way to promote the opening up of data. And then, for example, we also work with making it easier to build in open data when you procure new IT systems, for example. So we are working in different perspectives to make it easier. And make it more interesting. We also work with lifting the benefits, like the efficiency benefit for public actors, so to motivate them.
Thank you very much for joining from Luleå, and greetings to north of Sweden.
Thank you.
Hello everybody. Dr. Zero Show right now will connect to Cambridge. There is an excellent researcher, Didem Gurdur. Broo. Welcome, Didem. How are you?
Hello. Thank you very much, Cesar. Thank you for inviting me. I'm doing well. How are you?
Fine, fine. I am amazed to read your research and at the same time what you share and post at LinkedIn about your research and the things that you are doing. And I'm really excited to have you and to introduce you to my guest. So I have a question to you. The question is, I know you are fascinated about robots, but on one side, I am scared from robots. Why are you excited about robots? Can you please tell me why?
Okay, so I think it's natural for me to be excited by robots because I work with robots. I spent the last probably 6 years to work on mechatronics and cyber physical systems applications, which include robots, autonomous vehicles, and smart cities. So for me, robots are great opportunity for us to help us to do things much faster, more performative, with lower effort. They can help us in work settings. They can help us in care. We have so many different applications of that. But I don't know, it may be scary for other people. Why are you scared? So I can try to understand.
You know, I usually see the robots in US that can be used like weapons. So if it is for the good purposes, so it is fine. But when I see these robots are jumping, and they made the parody, but that parody scared me when they were fighting and they had the guns. You know, these. What was the company name? I forgot its name, but it is the.
I think one of the best applications in robotics are coming from a company called Boston Dynamics from the US.
Yes,
think
Boston Dynamics.
You are talking about. Exactly.
Yes, but other than that, but I see you are looking robots from different perspectives. Can you give some examples that we shouldn't be scared and that we can be happy that we can utilize and use robots?
Yes, sure. So we have different type of robots, right? The ones that you see called android, humanoid type of robot, which mimics the already existing creatures like humans or dogs or horses and so on. And they try to mimic as much as possible the natural movements and the ways they balance and so on. So in some applications, like the one that you remember probably is one of them that is more like a donkey or a big dog kind of robot, which can help the soldiers to carry their equipment when they go to difficult terrains and so on. And I agree, they can be scary, but what is not scary about the military? The whole structure is designed to, they call it defense, but mainly we know that it is killing and destroying. But there are also really nice applications that help industries. So I work with, for instance, automated warehouses. So this is a regular warehouse where different type of goods are stored, and it is connected with the supply chain. So whenever there is an order coming from different suppliers, they either fill in the warehouse or dispatch different type of goods from the warehouse. So when we think about huge scale, Amazon has, for instance, automated warehouses where lots of robots are helping. The project that I worked on was also working on with similar idea. So how can we make, in that kind of a setting, firstly, we need to have different type of robots because one type of robot cannot do the whole job. Some of them are robotic arms, for instance. They can reach and collect things. Some of them are more like carrying the collected stuff. Some of them are like elevators, which can go up till the roof and down and dispatch some.
So it doesn't have to be robots that look like human being, but it can be different type
Exactly.
of task-oriented robots, you mean?
Exactly, exactly. And they don't really need to be like humans, because if humans were good anyways, we would use humans. You know, the capitalist systems requires us to do as much as possible with the most profit. But yeah, the different type of robots have different functionalities and different purposes. So these ones were more designed for this particular task. We have caring robots, especially in Japan. They are already in use, which can move also, but you know, they don't really need to be all the time moving around. They help the elderly to reach different type of services through internet by recognizing what they say and bringing. They can automatically fill their medicine needs, for instance. Go and collect from the door their goods, newspapers, and bring them, and so on. And you know, in Japan, robots are believed to have spirits, and it is part of their culture.
Really? We should talk about this maybe in
Exactly.
another program. So they believe robots
Yeah.
have spirit. Then you cannot, I don't know, hit a robot because they have a spirit. Like.
Exactly. Yes, yes. One of the reasons why Japanese technology and robotics are the most matured and progressed one in the world is the cultural aspects of it, that the society believes that, like humans, like animals, the robots, the objects especially, also have souls. So for that reason, they do not see robots as scary as some other may. Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to elaborate more on this? We are shifting away the topic, but I think this is interesting thing. If you want to share something else about
Yeah,
like
I
how
mean,
they, yes.
yeah. So, how it makes difference when the culture is more open to technology, and especially sees the technological products as living creatures like humans and animals. Yeah, I think the interesting thing with Japanese culture and technology is how they approach the technological products, or generally in objects, but in this case the robots, and they think that the robots also has souls. So for that reason, they do not get scared or have different. I'm not going to say they are scared is a bit too much, but they don't have, let's say, difficulties to accept robots as part of their daily lives. The manga culture, the TV, the cinema, and also these old stories that has been told for centuries about robot-like creatures makes a lot of changes in their approach to technology, I would say.
Okay, but is it like that maybe they utilize robots much more to help to their life, while some other countries and companies are trying to utilize robots to destroy lives? So of course the perception changes. But it is interesting to see that one. Could you please elaborate on more about examples of robots usage that you know?
So we have different, as I said, different types of robots. Some robots, for instance, works underwater. They can dive into quite deep waters where we are not able to dive, or if we dive, we need to have a safety stopper for safety reasons, to have enough oxygen back in our lungs and so on. But you know, the robots doesn't have lungs, so they can go in deep, and they collect different type of samples in different deepness of the water, and then they bring that to the surface so scientists can study. For instance, I find them really interesting, and since I love diving also, I
Oh.
adore them.
I know you like to fly because I see your videos with the drones picture, and so you want to dive. So it seems surface is not enough for you.
No, world, or the earth is not my place really. I always think that I belong to ocean or sea. But with this body, this is what we can do, Serdar. This is the most.
So can we say that actually there are very good usage of robots if we utilize it correctly for the parts that human body cannot survive or is not strong enough?
Exactly. I think this is the rule for, it should be the rule for technology in any sense, including robots. So what we need to do is to try to see where do we need technological development, where do we need robots. And there are so many different applications. Mines are dangerous places. Diving deep in water is dangerous. Repetitive work that the human body cannot really handle, like the warehouses that you only reach and collect some pieces all the time. It's really
Boring, not productive.
Exactly. We can do much better. We are, the human body and brain is much more capable to do that. So using robots in these kind of settings, and instead educating people to do something else, or giving people the chance to try different things and find what they care, what they love. And this should be the purpose of how we design and implement robots in our daily lives. What is the purpose of it? Why do we need them? And also, when we introduce them, what will happen to the, for instance, workers, that they will lose their jobs?
Thank you very much, Didem, for joining from Cambridge University, and I wish you good luck with your research and to discuss with you more about your fascinating projects. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Serdar. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Hi, I hope you had a great time at Dr. Zero Show, and if you want other people to hear it, please follow me at Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Don't forget to follow Reportare, and don't forget to follow Dr. Zero Show. If you have any suggestions, recommendations, please get in touch with me. I will be glad to communicate with you and listen what you suggest. See you. Bye.